What's going on, people? Happy Monday. Hope you all had an excellent Easter and 420, depending on which holiday it is that you celebrate today. We've got a really, really good back-to-back as we start to wrap up the spring and move into the summer season. Another episode of Lost. We're doing What Kate Did, which a Lost episode, finally, that gives us some answers to something. I don't know, Luke. Did we have any more questions after this one? I don't know. I feel like I finally got enough answers on Kate.
On Kate, definitely, but then you have the island side of the matter, and that will always present more questions than it answers. So a well balanced episode of Lost. And I'm really getting into the Lost habit now with predicting how certain scenes are going to play out, and we'll get into that.
Yes, you have truly become one with the Lost Hive. And then after that, we will, of course, be reviewing Ryan Coogler's new movie, Sinners, which people are championing, not just for the quality of the movie, but for people showing up en masse to an original movie for once. All of that and more on today's episode of Talkin Lost. All right, Luke. So this week's episode of Lost, we have season 2, episode 9, What Kate Did. So after kind of the craziness of last week, somebody's dead, everybody's running around, everybody's not sure what to do. We have sort of a quieter, come down episode, sort of. But what it instead doubles as is an episode where we get an answer to a long overhanging mystery. This is our next Kate backstory episode. But unlike the ones in last season, which felt like overly like they needed to overly make up the mystery and constantly build up, oh, what did Kate do? What did Kate do? What did Kate do? Now we finally get the answer in the episode, what Kate did. And it's also through the lens of having to try and save Sawyer, who is, again, sick to the point of dying. But as she comes to find out, Sawyer may not necessarily be Sawyer. So, and then also off in the corner, you have John, Michael, and Echo, once again, trying to figure out what's going on with the hatch, and Echo actually providing a missing piece that Locke necessarily needed. So already we're starting to amp up the friendship level between those two, the two very overtly mysterious characters who seem bonded to the island in some way, shape, or form. But first things first, Kate and Sawyer, we finally find out what it is that Kate did, after so many episodes of build-up, so many episodes of mystery, she's being chased by this marshal. We don't exactly know what's going on. She clearly did something really bad. And this episode, we find out she killed her dad, or somebody who she thought was her stepdad, but it turned out was her actual dad. So, Luke, was this reveal a little bit underwhelming, or did it make perfect sense for Kate's character?
No, our little terrorist over here. It's perfect, that explanation. She's got the big daddy issues, biggest on the island. Actually, no, her and Sawyer both just massive.
I don't know. Jacks are pretty up there. Once you find out,
Jack, okay, basically half the
everybody has daddy issues. Sawyer, Kate, Jack.
Now
Locke,
that I think about
they
it, it's
all
like
have
pretty much
daddy
everyone.
issues. Son is in there too.
Oh, but that's the key to the show.
Yes,
the island just brought everyone who has massive daddy issues.
Yes,
but yeah, that makes it. That is living up to the potential of what she could have been doing. The episode starts of her picking mangoes, and I'm like, okay, only two things can happen here. Either one, Locke's gonna show up, or two, she's gonna see something weird, and she does see a black horse, which comes back in the flashback, and then comes back in the next episode. Again, that kind of Alice in Wonderlandy vibe that this island has, where basically anything can appear. So we'll get to that.
I love how, too, it's another one of those things where we're so deep into the island lore at this time that by the time the episode ends and her and Sawyer are like, Sawyer's alive and she's like showing him out outside, they both see the black horse, and Kate's like, you're seeing that, right? And Sawyer's like, yeah, and that Sawyer sees it because he's the one that reacts to it first. So it's another one of the instances of the island playing its magical tricks in order to help people move past trauma. And this time, like I said, it's not just the classic case of patricide, killing your dad. It's the classic case of, okay, her mom left who she thought was her dad, who's this army guy. Obviously, again, different lifestyles. Ended up getting with this loser, Wayne, who would beat her frequently. And clearly also, was a little bit too lustful after Kate when she was a kid. And Kate, of course, grew up hating him, idolizing who she thought was her actual dad. Then it turns out the reason why her mom and her actual dad were never together is because this is actually her real dad, her mom's childhood friend, who, again, she was always in love with, despite the fact that she could never get away from them. And it's just something about that just drives Kate nuts and up a wall. And so what does she do? She puts him down one night when he comes home drunk, lights up a gas canister and blows up the house. And good old Wayne is gone. Unfortunately, Wayne has come back to haunt her in the form of a ghost possessing Sawyer, sort of. Well, first it appears in the form of a black horse, and then it's in the form of a ghost, possessing Sawyer, who she realizes she has to have one last conversation with because she has to kind of atone for her actions. So she has to put that that trauma, that grief behind her. And of course, Jack is trying to help her, but unfortunately, these are areas that Jack has no expertise in. Even though Jack does have daddy issues, unfortunately, he's not quite equipped to help Kate out in this sense. As she said,
And Kate is just losing it this entire episode. She goes to Saeed, and Saeed says, I saw Walt in the jungle before Shannon was shot. I was like, hey, do you see something? I don't know. Do you see something? So these people are like relating to each other, going crazy. And then as the show goes on, I think that'll be more important. And she kisses Jack just like that.
yes,
Which was
finally.
like, whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I said,
I didn't think we were there yet.
There's a lot of tension being addressed this episode, this season.
I thought like 2-3 more seasons before that. But then she goes back to Sawyer, and then she, as you mentioned, yells at the ghost of her dad. And
that's the other thing too. Also, this episode finally answers is it finally explains why Kate keeps going back to Sawyer over Jack, even though Jack is clearly the more obvious choice, if you will. But it definitely explains a lot, and also I feel like it adds more to Sawyer as well, because now you understand why these two have had such a tepid rivalry. Because Sawyer doesn't know it yet, but Kate is attributing all of these character traits that she had from her dad to Sawyer ultimately, even though Sawyer has kind of been pushed in this way, obviously for vastly different reasons. You could understand why Kate would, find so much in common with the dashing rogue like that, because ultimately that was her template for role models growing up. There's a reason why, again, our loves that we have in our life, they always come back to our parents. We always base them off of the opposite sex member. Guys base their attributes for what they want in a romantic partner off of their mom, and then girls with their dad, and vice versa. It's the whole, fucking oh my god.
Ask Freud. He knows better.
Yeah. It's the whole Freud. It's the whole oh my god, what's the fucking Greek? Oedipus. It's the whole Oedipus complex. The whole thing. We all secretly want to sleep with our parents. Let's just get it out of the way right there. What's it called? Sorry to make this uncomfortable again, this psychology, but I feel like this is no stranger. I feel like
Lost demands it. Lost demands.
Yeah, Lost demands it. It always does. Lindelof is a fan of all sorts of mythologies and theologies and ideologies and all of that stuff, and he likes to tackle all of it. So. Do Kate's daddy issues get resolved? That's what's kind of crazy, is despite there being more Kate flashback episodes after this, I realize now that I'm like, oh yeah, they really did need to address this, because I didn't realize just how much ambiguity, because we got some answers for almost all the characters last season, including why Kate was in Australia, but we still have like a couple things that weren't addressed from season 1. Like we still didn't know what it was that this great crime that Kate had done that had this marshal chasing after her like crazy. We still don't know why Charlie was in Australia. Literally, Charlie's the only season 1 character that they never told us why he went to Australia. We know his backstory, but we don't know why he went to Australia. And we're also still getting into the tail end survivors as well. We have Ana Lucia's backstory that got, as far as, her inciting incident, but we don't necessarily know what it is that got her on the plane. We're about to find out with Echo. But the whole thing is that we're, like I said, this season has been all about filling in the pieces, giving us alternate perspectives, except for with Kate, who we finally just got the ultimate answer to. So obviously the other bit, kind of B plot of this episode is
this was my A plot. I get that's the main plot, but this is like
that was the character building moment. This is the lore building moment where it's like we're finally getting more into it. Where
we're back on track.
Yeah. So
when Jack's in the episode, I know that the plot's gonna be moving along because he's been absent from the main cast for a bit.
Yeah. So like I said, it's Echo. The tail end survivors are starting to see the hatch. Michael, Locke showing them around. Michael wants to explore the computer a bit, see what's going on, and then Locke, of course, shows Echo the film. That Doctor. Oh, I can't remember what that scientist's name is. Francois Choi's character. Explaining kind of how the hatch works, but obviously again there's bits of film missing. And Echo then, of course, does his usual bit where he gets up very, very silently, goes to the other side of the room, pacing around, comes back with a
He's
Bible.
great at stretching the runtime to 40 minutes.
It's
The writers
perfect.
thought, okay, we can't always fill the 40 or so minutes, so we can get a guy who's mysterious. He just walks away, and then he'll tell you
Yeah,
later.
and then when he does tell you, he's going to give this big, long
Yeah,
soliloquy about the origins of mythology and man and all of that and the Bible. And he's what's it called? And he's like, I believe that you would refer to it as the Old Testament, blah 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 blah. How it goes into like the pre-comings of Christ. And then he basically pulls out the Bible and he's like, I think that this may be something that could be of more use to you than me. And John opens it and he sees more pieces of film. And it's
but anyway, have this thing that you exactly need.
it's I love how certain characters in Lost like can only work if they're like with certain characters. Like the only character that Echo would have been able to give this whole soliloquy explanation to is Locke, because everybody else would have been like, get to the point already. You
They're
know,
so perfect for each other.
it's a match made
Locke
in heaven.
has his other cryptic fellow to
Yes.
bounce off of. It's great.
It's a match made in heaven, ultimately, perfectly. And while the revelation of the extra reels of film and putting the two together doesn't give us all the answers, what it does tell us is, okay, this whole pushing the button thing, it's not necessarily a Schrodinger's cat situation, because their whole thing that they say is that there hasn't been a problem since the last incident. So clearly that shows that, like, okay, something does happen if you don't push the button. What that is, we don't know, but something will happen.
We almost found out because they were running kind of low because Kate just left after getting choked out by Sawyer, and then the countdown was like 10 seconds away. Locke had to rush in.
I would say we're so close to finding out.
Yeah.
Because of course you could probably figure out, again, it's just naturally given storytelling. They've been spending all season pushing this damn button. So you can naturally assume that at the end of the season, someone, it may not be who you expect, but someone is going to not push the button. And that's what will lead.
It was too far too early in the season for them to not push the button. It's like
exactly.
It's like telling us, hey, if it wasn't obvious enough already,
exactly,
the button will not be pressed eventually.
Next week is episode 10, so we'll be just about halfway through the season next week. So, like I said, that's finally when some things will start to change. Like I said, we still have a couple more new character backstories that we need to get into. Like I said, we got Ana Lucia's last week, then we're gonna get Echo's next week. Speaking of which, Jack saw a little moment that he had with Ana Lucia. What did you think of that? Where Ana Lucia is still, Ana Lucia is still kind of
speaking about.
Ana Lucia is kind of still off on her own. She's kind of sulking a bit. She still doesn't want to interact with the rest of the survivors. And Jack comes up and offers her the drink that she got when they were kind of like talking to each other, flirting with each other at the airport. Ultimately, Jack and Ana Lucia, was that a pair that could have ever worked out if not for landing on the plane and the island? Or no, you think they never would have worked out even in the mainland?
No, I think they could work out now. Like you have the Sawyer Kate power couple, you have this power couple. I don't know. We'll have to see it. This isn't really like as much of a romance heavy show as I might have thought before.
Which, if you ask me, we're always so much better off for it.
Yeah. We had the Shannon Saeed. There's like allusions to Charlie Claire, but not really. And so I think Kate and Sawyer is going to be our main focal point of romance.
And then obviously Son and Jim, but they're married. So
but they're already established. So
but this, like I said, this is a big stepping point for Kate and Sawyer, especially because I feel like this was an extra bonding moment, because obviously once Kate managed to make the ghost of Wayne go away and Sawyer wakes up and he's like, who the hell is Wayne? I thought that was just hilarious. And then when they step outside and then they both see the black horse, which was interesting too, also is, you're going to have to refresh my memory here, but this is another one of those instances where the omens that you think you only see on the island also show up on the real world, because when Kate's first arrested by the marshal in the flashback and they're driving to wherever they are, the whole reason why she's able to escape is because of the black horse on the highway. So clearly, obviously the episode opens and obviously, once it wraps, you assume the black horse is Wayne in some way, but in reality, it could be maybe another omen from the island, perhaps, because as we've seen, the island is also, it does not just throw these little hints in there on the island itself. Like they do show up in the real world, especially as we get later on into the show, Yeah. So
again, the island, from what I've seen, it's not evil. It's just this force, this entity that, shows you what you need to learn a lesson or whatever. Yes. So I'm not looking for like a be all answer of, there's the island, is this mythical figure, whatever. No, it's just a force. Me being a Stephen King reader, I can understand that. Right. It's a force. he loves like, over explaining himself. I don't think Lost will make that same mistake.
Right. See, and this is part of the reason again why I don't understand why people like had such gripes with the ending. It's like it's very clearly obvious that they're telling you what the island is. Like it could not be more obvious. Anybody who's ever read anything in science fiction, anything in fantasy, anything Stephen King related, like you said, knows that there are like that writers will throw in these forces, forces of nature, as these kind of ancillary forces, and it has been made very clear to us over the course of the last, our 31st episode recapping this show. It has been made very clear to us over the course of the last 31 episodes that this island is not just any old island. There is something to this island, and it doesn't, but because of the kind of the nature of the show, it doesn't really need to tell us exactly everything, like pull a Stephen King and just over explain everything, because then that would take away from the central mystery and the show wouldn't be what it is. So
Yeah.
Is the trauma between Kate and Sawyer resolved? We shall find out ultimately on next week's episode and our last week of our last Lost recap of April before I head to Nashville for a week. The 23rd Psalm is next week, but that is what Kate did. But stay tuned for what's right directly after this if you're listening to this on Spotify, because oh man, we got a doozy in mind. Ryan Coogler's 5th feature film, Sinners. We're going to be reviewing that next, and oh boy, we've got a lot to talk about there. Luke, where can the people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. I need to upload the Mission Impossible 3 video today, I think. Did you already?
I already did. Yes, for right now, it's holding up against copyright for now.
All right.
We'll see.
I'm gonna post it after we finish the Sinners review.
Yeah.
But
I don't.
a lot of fun there.
Yes, I don't have it set to go up until tomorrow. So, but
Yeah.
so that'll be fine. I'll let you.
And we're doing 5 tomorrow.
Yes, we're recording 5 tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we are chugging along with these Mission Impossible rewatches. And of course, you can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Like, subscribe. You guys know the deal. We'll see you guys next on Sinners.